Ever wonder how mindfulness can survive the trenches of addiction in rock music? Our guest today has lived it, and today he shares his incredible story of transformation.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. Dave Smith is our guest today, and his story is as raw and as real as it gets. Picture this: a rebellious teen lost in the chaos of life, stumbling into the world of mindfulness after a series of personal tragedies. Fast forward to today, and Dave's journey has taken him from rock bands and addiction to sitting in 90-day meditation retreats, teaching mindfulness in prisons, and guiding others through the labyrinth of suffering and self-discovery. So whether you're curious about meditation or just trying to make sense of life's curveballs, you came to the right place. So buckle up, buttercups. It's going to be a deep dive with Dave, Dharma, and the adventures of self-knowledge. Welcome, John. Welcome, Dave. It's great to have you guys, and let's do another show.
Yeah, man.
All
Dave,
right,
great
good
to
to
have
see
you,
you
brother.
guys. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And Will, always good. Always a pleasure to be here with you. So for our listeners, just a couple of reminders. Hey, we're interviewing a meditation teacher today. So we thought it would be great to talk about our virtual meditation retreat, virtual meditation course, if you will, starting April 27th. If you want to know more about that, it's going to be live, 9 weeks. If you want to know more about that, head to mentalkingmindfulness.com. You screwed me in the notes there, Will. No, I'm just kidding.
No, John's like Anchorman. Like whatever I put on the fucking show notes, he reads. And like instead of like always typing out mentalkingmindfulness.com. Anyway, sorry, John, continue.
I am Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, head to mentalkingmindfulness.com for details and sign up there. And hey, we're also looking for sponsors for the show. You know, whether you're a business or just someone who really likes the show and wants to support us, because I will be honest, it costs money to make this show, and we would love that financial support. So again, more information at mentalkingmindfulness.com for the different sponsor tiers, and we would love that. So that all said, that out of the way, let's get into our opening practice. Just one simple breath grounding practice. So let's get comfortable, whatever that looks like and feels like for you, whatever you're open to and feel safe doing. And let's just exhale, letting that breath out, emptying all the way. Bring your navel to your spine. And finally, nice, long, slow, deep breath in, filling all the way to the top. Hold and release. Release. And now bring some movement back into the body, maybe moving your neck around, rolling your shoulders. And all right, let's jump in. Will, I'll let you start, brother.
I just got a little crack in my neck coming out of that.
Beautiful.
That was so nice. So Dave, great to have you here. I thought a great opening moment for us is like, meditation has obviously had a clear, profound impact in your life. What was that, your first experience with it, and like what kind of drew you into meditation?
Suffering, that's not always the case, but for a lot of us, that's kind of it. I've been chasing the first experience for 30 years. I mean, I was introduced 32 years ago at the age of 18. And I had the good fortune of growing up down the street from a guy named Daniel Goleman, who was kind of the famous emotional intelligence writer. So I grew up with his kids. And, Joseph Goldstein would be at his house, and Sharon Salzberg and Ram Dass and all these people that we know and love. I met when I was a teenager, and they were just my friends' dad's weird friends. And I had a lot of death and loss in my life. And so at 18, a girlfriend was killed in a car accident. We got run down by a drunk driver. And I was kind of in this like pretty dissociative, traumatized state for like a couple of months. It was like on September. And my Hanuman, who is Danny's son, his mom kind of said, you should go talk to like my friend. He's a meditation teacher and maybe he can help you. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. I'll go talk to your friend. And, it was at the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts. And I just sat down with this guy, Stephen Smith, who was my first teacher. And I mean, I was like so identified with my mind. I mean, I didn't feel like the world was safe. I didn't trust anybody or anything. I thought the whole world and life and people and everything was just total bullshit. And I wanted no fucking part of it. Except for I wasn't suicidal. So I was just like, well, I had no sense of hope, no sense. I looked at the future and it just was all like nothing I was interested in doing. So my mind was a kind of a fucking nightmare. I mean, it was just a nightmare, day in, day out. And at that point, I was drinking and doing drugs a little bit, and that was helping to some degree. But, I took it for granted. I did exactly what you just did. I sat down with this meditation teacher, and he told me to sit. He showed me how to sit. He said, bring your attention to the in-breath and breathe in. Okay, bring your attention to the out-breath, breathe out, opening to sound, your basic drill. And then he would say, like, well, when you notice that your mind wanders, when you getting caught up in the thoughts and the stories, just kind of notice that and then come back. And so I did that, 5 or 6 times. And I got this like tremendously huge, visceral, just magic Dharma transmission of just like, I just had this full awakening to be like, oh my God, so much of my suffering is completely just in my head. Like, it's not even real. And there was like this escape hatch. I could get out of my mind and into my body and into the breath and into the present moment and all this stuff. But there was almost like 2 experiences. There was the direct lived experience moment by moment that I didn't know anything about, that nobody knows anything about, frankly. The phenomenological experience of senses arising and passing away and the breath rising and passing away. And then there was this other thing, which was me and my life and the world and the story. And, it was like a Netflix binge series. It was like a Stephen King, and I saw that there was this kind of dichotomy where there was kind of these 2 experiences I could be in. And after that, man, I was just like that completely got me interested in existential philosophy and Buddhism. And it just kind of was like, oh, like I had no idea. And so that changed everything. I mean, I walked out of that hall. I was living in a completely different universe than when I walked in. Like, it was super profound.
Wow. It's almost like this sounds like the first time that you actually got present to this moment and out of your head. And
Yeah,
it was just
definitely.
like, you just woke up. Yeah. I mean, that's like, and that's what happens to a lot of people that begin to, or just even, I teach a lot here in the city, and just to get people to like take a couple deep breaths is a profound experience for them, because it does the same thing. It slows us down. We become more present. And that revelation, and you've really taken this revelation and kind of ran with it.
Yeah, I mean, I take it for granted. I'm sure you guys take it for granted. After a while, you forget like what it was like to be a lunatic,
I think
for saying
Will and I
that.
are
That's
both still
genius.
lunatics.
Oh, I'm still a fucking lunatic. I'm just more of a controlled lunatic. You know what I mean? Like, I pick my craziness instead of let it pick me all the time.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I know. It's better than being like a detached or attached lunatic. But,
a lot of the people who come to our retreats, they self-define themselves.
Here we go.
As recovering assholes.
I know. Yeah.
That's I appreciate the honesty for someone to be able to admit to that.
Yeah. And I fully admit I'm one as well. I'm probably still struggling with that.
I was called an asshole today.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, you were born an asshole. I'm like, well, it takes one to know one, my friend Theo.
Oh, man. Theo,
anyway,
call him out.
No, my buddy. He's my best friend. He doesn't listen to the show anyway.
Good.
So anyway.
Well, hey, Dave, so, one thing that Will and I get all the time is, that these people have these preconceived notions of what meditation is. That they think it's, just sitting and doing nothing, which we all know is the furthest thing from the truth. For you, what's the biggest misconception you hear, and then how do you address it?
I mean, that's a huge problem.
Yes.
It's a huge problem. I don't even like the word meditation. I don't like the word Buddhism or meditation, and I'm a Buddhist meditation teacher, so that lets you know how my world works.
Well, you're a smart teacher, because it's like, how do you communicate this work without disenfranchising or pushing people away? Yeah.
If we look at the Buddhist tradition, they don't use the word meditation. The word is bhavana, which means to cultivate. So really what meditation is, or mindfulness, which is your guys' podcast specifically, is about the cultivation of awareness. Through the 5 sense experiences, cultivation of present time awareness. So meditation kind of implies too much maybe thinking about things. So I'm going to go meditate on that. So cultivation is the better word. There's like a bunch of myths, but I'll give you just a couple of them. The big one, I think the obvious one, is the idea that I'm going to clear my mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We get
Oh,
that all the
God.
time too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's
good
big one.
luck.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's not about clearing the mind. It's not necessarily the absence of thinking. So that's a problem. You know, thoughts aren't the enemy. In meditation spaces, in particular mindfulness, thoughts have become demonized as if they're somehow a problem. And I couldn't even make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without thinking. So we don't want to get rid of it. So, you know, clearing our mind is a big problem. I think that's not really part of it. I think also, too, it's kind of now being delivered as a kind of problem solving strategy. Like, just be mindful and live in the moment and everything's going to be wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of the self-help world, which I despise, has kind of, you know, they've kind of commodified it. They've commercialized it. They've turned mindfulness into this thing that doesn't even really mean anything now. But as a mindfulness person, I instead of using a different word, I want to take that back and say, no, be very specific what we're talking about. So it's not going to solve your problems. It's not about clearing your mind. It's really about being aware of what's happening. And so I think that when people kind of get those two down, maybe it can help dispel some of the myths, or we would say probably.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, I love that. And it's like, I mean, you're speaking our language, and I'm like, I'm loving this, John. I'm like, this guy's fantastic. Like, and you're just like
I
going
can
right
see
at
it,
it.
man.
Right. I know. I mean, you can just feel the passion. I can feel the wisdom, the knowledge coming through. But let's talk about like, so how about, you know, you're also an emotional intelligence coach, which I love. We need so much more of that in the world. Like the men that we work with, and a lot of times, and women too, but definitely men, they lack a lot of emotional intelligence, and it really gets in their way of like having a more fulfilling life, making better choices, and like kind of living more on purpose. So, you know, can you make a little connection for us between, you know, meditation and emotional intelligence, and you know, help us, you know, yeah, just
Well, now I'm going to get a little angry because you know, we really fucking dropped the ball on this one. I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up down the street from the guy who
I
wrote
golden, I
Emotional
know.
Intelligence, right?
Yeah.
He wrote the book in 1995. It was on the bestsellers list of the New York Times, and nobody
Yeah.
picked up the ball and ran with it.
Right.
And so, emotional intelligence, first of all, the only way you can develop emotional intelligence is you have to have some degree of mindfulness, or in emotional intelligence language, we would say self-awareness.
Right. Yes.
You have to look inside and realize, turns out I'm an asshole. You know, I need to do something about this. Right. And so,
Exactly.
also too, there's a big misconception. I think people feel like emotions are these kind of annoying things that we want to be rid of.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence is, you know, people, it looks good on paper, but when you start to get the emotional intelligence, it's kind of a bad news article. You're like, holy shit, I really don't have my shit together. I get angry. I get scared. I don't have access to my emotions. I feel emotional. I don't even know what I'm feeling. Am I scared? Am I angry? Am I ashamed?
Yeah.
People have no ability to recognize emotional experiences. And generally what we do now too, what really pisses me off is, in the culture that we live in, is all this trigger blaming. I'm having a bad feeling. Now everybody needs to tiptoe around my feelings all the time.
You cause me anxiety. You know what I mean? Whatever. It's like,
and that's anti-emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
Anti-emotional intelligence.
Yes.
I love that.
No personal responsibility. None. Yeah. Right.
So, you know, when and this is what pulled me in the emotional intelligence. Even Buddhism does a terrible job of talking about this, frankly, is that mindfulness is really the skill that can bring us into the emotional experience. And then we can kind of better understand the problem. Another problem with this is that people don't understand what emotions are. First of all, we're not always emotional, and we're mostly not emotional. We have emotional episodes that happen 3, 5, 7 times a day. Something happens, we get angry, we go through these little emotional episodes. So when people go on a meditation retreat, or they go and they do practice, like if I sit on the corner of my room in the morning at 5 a.m., emotions don't arise because I'm just sitting in my office quietly. And so we have to learn how to work with emotions on the go, on the fly. And so, we don't always have the emotional experience. So I think people just are poorly educated on what they are, how they work. And then, you know, a little bit is a lot. If you have no emotional intelligence and then you get like a little bit, that's great, because you start to realize, when I get angry, I make bad choices. When I get angry, I say things and I do things that I regret later. Well, what happened there? Well, next time I get angry, maybe I can be more mindful. I can be more tuned in that and say, because this happens to me. I'll say it to myself, when I'm angry, I know I'm angry. I say, I'm angry. You should probably be very careful about what comes out of your mouth right now, dude. Because you say stupid shit when you're angry.
I think that's the one thing that could help everybody and anybody understand or just take that first step in emotional intelligence. It's like you are not making your best choices. You are not your best self when you're emotional, and then doing things with that emotion running through you. Like we could save a lot of problems in our lives and in the world if we weren't always just triggered and just like, running with our emotions like we're a bunch of kids. Like instead of being an adult, being mature, and taking ownership for like, oh wait, I'm feeling this. That doesn't mean that like this situation, I'm like, and then you just catastrophize things with the emotion, and then all of a sudden you're just painting enemy images like all over the world, and it's just not the way things are. But that's what emotion does to us. It like literally hijacks our brain and just dramatizes everything around us instead of like fucking being present and seeing things honestly as they are.
It's also really hard. This is not
easy. Very
easy.
hard. It's very
hard.
hard.
And I'll say one more thing and I'll jump off my soapbox. Is
keep
that,
soapboxing, brother.
When you look at, this is just amazing to me that no one caught this. If you look at all of the clinical research on the benefits of mindfulness, there's been tons of studies, 4,000 peer-reviewed studies. The benefits of mindfulness, people practice mindfulness over an 8-week period. What are the outcomes? Every single study lists in the beneficial outcomes improved emotion regulation. Every study. So why haven't people connected the dots and say, okay, emotion regulation obviously is very important. Mindfulness is what improves that. What if we connected those two and created a program, a curriculum? What if we started to bring those worlds together to give people actually concrete strategies on how do you actually do this?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's like if everyone, David, would have the moment that you did, of that, like you sit, you have a teacher, he's just helping you to come back to your breath, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, it's like, I'm not of this mind. And the mind brings up the emotions, and the emotions like keep, habituating the mind, and it just becomes an absolute mess. And if we would just get people to breathe and have those, get out of the sympathetic into the parasympathetic, like people's lives would change 100%. Well, also, what I like reading from your bio, and the work you've done, you've said like everything we need to cultivate a meaningful life is already inside of us. We get it. John and I get it. You get it. But like that could be a pretty radical idea for a lot of people. Like, what do you mean by that? Everything we need to cultivate a meaningful life is already inside of us.
Well, there's a lot of ways to tackle that. So, first of all, people are kind of lazy. We want the answer to be out there, kind of. I'm going to get the job. I'm going to get the relationship. I'm going to get the thing. I'm going to have the stuff, and then I'm going to feel good. It's like, okay, like I don't know anybody that's ever worked for, but let's give it another shot.
It's also how we're educated. Sorry, Dave.
It's how we're educated.
Right. Or it's just like we just consume instead of going within. But yeah, I'm sorry.
Continue. No, you're right. No, that's right. That's right. Yep. And so what I mean by that is everything is within. So anger's in here. Love is in here. Anger, shame is in here. Kindness, it's all in here. And so part of that is trying to unlock these qualities. And really, when I say cultivate, there's kind of two sides to that. It's like kind of like a garden, right? The Buddha's basically, I think, has the best assessment on it. We want to look within and we want to recognize the qualities that we want to cultivate, and we want to cultivate those qualities, and we want to recognize the qualities that we want to abandon or overcome and let those go. And that's kind of the Buddha's whole deal. It's like, well, like, do you want to cultivate this anger and hatred? Okay, well, then fuel it and, pour gasoline on it and see what happens.
Just keep doing the same thing, right?
So there's a way in which, and I'll use this word, I don't think it used a lot. I think what that can do, what it did for me, is it can give us a kind of faith, a non-religious kind of faith,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it kind of gives us a really good sense of agency, which I think is what people want. If they want agency, they want autonomy, they want self-efficacy, they want to feel empowered to make whatever changes in their life that they want to make.
The locus of control.
A locus of control. That's right. That word control gets a bad rap, but I think you're right about that. But that's, but that our society has so put that in the external world that I don't think it would occur to most people to go this way.
Mm.
They're like, it's got to be out there somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
And then you get the job. You know, how many times have you gotten something you thought was going to be awesome and you get it and you're like, eh.
A lot of the time, this very thing happened yesterday. Not so much for me, but my daughter. It was her birthday yesterday, and we did some cool things. We went to iFly. She turned 8. She got to do the indoor
Oh my! She must have
skydiving.
loved that.
It was awesome. It was
Nice.
great.
Oh.
But then, you know, we got her some gifts, and then, oh, God bless her. I love her to death. But she said, "Is that all you guys got me?" I'm like,
Exactly.
what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? But yeah, I had to.
It's
I had to
not her
straighten her
fault.
out. Yeah, it's not. Right.
Right.
So, yeah. I said, hey, you know what? You have a lot to be thankful for. You have a roof over your head. You have this. You have a lot to be thankful for. And
It's hard as a parent to see him do that shit because my kids do it all the time.
yeah, right. So Dave, you've used the word Dharma. You know, when you said that you went to your first meditation experience, or you went through it, it was like Dharma, right? What does that word mean, and why is it important in the practice of mindfulness?
You know, I think it's one of the most meaningful words that I would use. So it means a lot to me. Like Buddhism, I don't really care about so much. The Buddha didn't teach Buddhism. He taught this thing called the Dharma, which is kind of a weird thing, hard thing to translate. But whether we like it or not, mindfulness was developed in the early Buddhist tradition. You know, this guy, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, you know, he's the one who said, you know, he didn't invent it. He didn't create it. He discovered, hey, like you can like watch what's going on. You know, he kind of showed us, hey, you guys have this, mindfulness also came with the equipment.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
It's in here.
Right.
And so what that does is that changes the whole game. And so that's kind of like stage one, is we can see that there's a whole other way to relate to our existential condition. And then the Dharma are kind of suggestions, tools, various maps, different philosophies, ethical implications, that kind of, you know, like mindfulness brings you into the territory. And the Dharma is the map.
Right. Or helps you to figure out the territory.
It helps you to figure out the territory. Not everybody uses it. Right. People argue about it. You know, it's kind of, you know, how much of this Buddhism stuff do we really want to, do we need, and we all have to kind of go through that on our own. But I have found, and this was the Buddha's suggestion, he said, don't take my word for it. Don't even trust me that my maps are correct. Try them out.
Yeah.
Try them out. If they work for you, great. If they don't, let it go. Yeah. And I'm going to trust somebody who's coming at it from that angle.
Yeah.
And for the most part, in the 30 years I've been doing this, dude was right about a lot of shit.
You know, while we're on that, that's another misconception that I hear quite often, especially amongst Christians, is that they don't want to meditate because they feel that it is a Buddhist practice.
It's totally not.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I guess it can be.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, and I've said this before, Buddhism doesn't own meditation. And that's like saying that another religion owns kindness.
Yeah, it's asinine to even make that
Great
claim.
point.
Right.
Great point.
Right. So yeah, for those who are listening, that is definitely a misconception, is that any type of mindfulness is Buddhism or related to some type of cult or something. It is, you know, it's just inner awareness, outer awareness. It's awareness. So
let's sit on that for a minute, because I think that's important. Is that mindfulness, if we just look at it from the view of cognitive science, right? What are we cultivating? Attention. Is there anything religious about attention? Probably not. You know, so we're just if we look at it from a cognitive model, we're aiming our attention at particular objects. We're noticing the attention leave the object, and we're kind of directing it back. And if you do that for a minute or two, you get into this kind of mindfulness is just a mode of cognition. It's modal. You're in this kind of mode. You're like looking at things differently. You're more tuned into sounds, into sights, and you're able to look at thoughts as these kind of phenomenological things that arise. You know, and that's just, and what you do with that, you can do a lot of different things. There's nothing religious about that at all. That's just a cognitive exercise, which is why I think mindfulness is made the inroads that it's made. And as a teacher, I consider I have an organization called the Secular Dharma Foundation. A lot of people, I have a lot of students that I've worked with for years who are hardcore religious Christians. I attract people who are on different sides of the political spectrum. I have some people that I work with who voted for the man with the red hat. Like, I don't have an opinion about that shit. You know what I mean? Like, there's no belief system. There's no view. There's no perspective. There's no required buy-in with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's open source, as they say.
Yeah.
I love that. We've actually got an
completely.
episode all about mindfulness and politics, which is pretty interesting because people do
talk about emotional reactivity.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
shit.
and
Drama,
there's also
drama.
there is a misconception that in order to practice mindfulness, you have to be on one specific side of the aisle, and that's not at all true.
I think that's a problem. Yeah, I definitely push back against it and do my best to kind of.
For sure.
Yeah.
If more people on both sides of the aisle practiced it, I think we'd be in a better
There'd be
place.
no more aisle.
Yeah,
Indeed.
Yeah,
Love
great point. No division down the center. Well, I think it's like what you're saying about, I think it's a good way to talk about mindfulness. It's a tool, and you can look at this like, think of it like a flashlight. It's just like, you just take your awareness and shine it on something and just watch it instead of continually, making your opinions or criticizing or attaching it to it in some way mentally, instead of just sit back, right, and be aware of, the situation in front of you, the situational awareness, the inner awareness, and then like make a choice whether you need to engage, not engage, how you're going to engage. Like, it's just that it's a wonderful tool. But like you said, the key word I think we're really driving home in this pod today is cultivating. You need to cultivate that awareness, right? And we get to cultivate more of our inner life. We get to understand and cultivate, that, who we are on the inside out, and we can really make a huge impact in the world. All right, let's talk
what you're
about,
saying is huge. It's a tool. What are you going to do with the mindfulness?
exactly.
You're like, I got it.
Yeah.
It's like, the dog who caught his tail. It's like, what's he do with it now? It's like,
Yeah.
And I think the other thing to just kind of culturally to just kind of put out there, because people probably think of it this way, is in America, everything's a product model. So mindfulness has been commodified. So we have a product model of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the product. What do I need to do to acquire the product of mindfulness? And as soon as you go into that line of thinking, you've totally missed the whole damn thing. It's not a product that one gets and has. It's processual. It's like, how do I process it? It's not a product. And so when we that makes it a little bit harder for people, because they think they read an article, they listened to your podcast, they heard mindfulness was a good thing, and they're looking down the aisles of Target going, where do I buy the mindfulness?
Yeah, you buy it at our online course.
See, there you go.
Or yours, Dave. You know what I mean? Well, and it's just like, when you begin to, whether you take the course or like thinking of a tool, what do we do with tools? We refine, we resharpen them. You know what I mean? We polish them. We take care of our tools. We maintain them. And that's like, with the Vipassana work I've done with Goenka, he would always come back to that. It's like sharpening your tools, like sharpening your focus, sharpening the mind, right? So like, and just think, when you have a sharp mind, you're able to, like, just like a sword, you cut through the bullshit and get to the reality, the Dharma of what the fuck is going on right here, right now, because it's the only place that we can function from, and we're really aware of whatever the situation is and what it requires. We're going to most likely, or have a better chance of making a good choice, and use our energy wisely and our mind and all the capability we have in that moment. So
very well said. Exactly.
Yeah. It just takes it. Well, one more thing about meditation that I really want to kind of get deeper into your life a little bit. So, lots of people say that you can't meditate. They can't meditate because they can't sit still or quiet their mind. Like, what would you say to them, David, in all your wisdom?
Well, there is an ethical dimension here that people try to skirt away from. And I would say at the bottom of it all is, at some point, and I suggest you do it sooner than later, we have to make friends with our mind. We have to befriend the mind. And the sooner you do that, the entire project becomes a lot more enjoyable, dare I say. Because people, as soon as you get into as soon as you start struggling with the mind, you're trying to tug the attention, is that we do. And also, let's just be honest, like, we live in a society, especially nowadays, people hate themselves.
Yeah. Self-loathing. Plenty of it.
Oh, yeah.
I've
And
had
if
it.
you hate yourself and then you sit down and you look at your mind and you become eyeball to eyeball with the self-hatred, who the fuck wants to do that?
Yeah, right. No kidding.
So there's a relational piece. And when I teach people from the beginning, I'm like, mindfulness of breathing and kindness for oneself, alternate those. And I think you want to get to a point where whether you're doing mindfulness of breathing or whether you're doing kindness for yourself, you actually can't even tell the difference anymore.
Yeah, that's man, I'm just trying to process that a little bit. And yeah, this I want to learn a little bit more about you, Dave. So you started off with your journey. You said you lost a girlfriend. She was hit by a drunk driver. Terrible. I can't even imagine what that was like. Like from there, you started using alcohol and drugs. At what point did you realize that the alcohol and drugs were? You said they helped to a point. I think that was your wording at the beginning.
Yeah,
of the
people
show.
use drugs because they fucking work.
Well, you want to escape, right? Yeah. I mean,
They do.
yeah. But you're trying to escape something most of the time, right? You're trying to escape pain. You're trying to escape fear. You're trying to escape sadness a lot of the time. I mean, sometimes there's just people want to just have some fun, but like, what was the moment that you decided that you needed to get sober? And you kind of had the thought, oh, you know what, I need to change. And then tied to that, once you made that decision, what happened next and what was the hardest part of staying on that journey?
I mean, not so much, but my timeline's wonky. I was drinking fairly regularly at the age of 13.
Oh, wow.
I would drink a beer in the woods before I got on the bus to go to school.
Oh,
okay, I'm
man.
that
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then
Take
my
us back,
father
just
was, I'm classic Gen X, John Hughes world, grew up north of Boston. My dad's a Vietnam vet, PTSD, alcohol, construction, concrete work. Like I'm that kid, blue collar,
Like the Goodwill Hunting.
You fucking work hard, you drink hard, man. That's how we do it.
Everything is
know?
hard.
So I was doing that for a long, long time. And my sister got killed in a car accident when I was 12, which kind of kicked this all on.
Jeez.
So the death is the big teacher. Now, at 18, I learned meditation and I started going on 10-day retreats. I didn't get sober till I was 28. So for 10 years, I was doing both. Okay. I was going on these Vipassana retreats at Insight Meditation Society. I was very serious about it. I was reading a lot of philosophy. I also was a hardcore punk rocker hanging out in Boston, and I had a successful band. And we're touring with the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, and we're going to Europe,
wow.
and I'm playing in front of 20,000 people. I'm fucking winning, basically.
I love it.
So I'm getting away with murder because I'm partying my ass off. I'm getting away with it, and I got this meditation thing, so I think I'm a spiritual giant.
And even
I'm an
badass.
arrogant little prick.
Yeah. Well, how old are you at this time?
I'm like, this is 18 to 28.
Oh my God, dude.
Full bore, no job.
Yeah.
Just like every day. And then, it takes a turn for the worse and, it stopped working. And I can spare you all the gory details, but it's like, I was living in Amsterdam. I was in a band. This was the hardest thing. Quitting drinking actually wasn't that hard. This was the hardest moment. I was playing an outdoor festival in Holland in front of 15,000 people. I got my guitar. I got Marshall stacks behind me. I hit a chord on my guitar echoing through the Dutch hills. I mean, heaven, you would think. Middle of the day. I got a good buzz on. I've been smoking weed and hash all day. I mean, this should be it, right? And I'm playing and this thought occurs to me and I go, this is what happens in my mind. I go, you know what? This fucking sucks.
Wow.
I was like, this fucking sucks and you know it. And I was like, whoa, let's get that out of here. Like, we don't need this going on. So I started getting these broadcasts in my mind of like, dude, you're a mess. You're totally unhappy. You're not even having fun playing music anymore. You hate your band. You hate yourself. Like, what the fuck? And let me tell you, that was the worst. That is like, the existential crisis from hell. Then the question becomes, well, now what? And this was stewing in my head for a couple of weeks. And I was like, well, I'm just going to have to quit my band. I was like, I'm going to quit my band. I'm going to move back in with my mom and dad. And I'm going to fucking go to Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what you do. Because I grew up in alcohol. So I went to Alateen as a kid. I went to AA meetings when I was 15. I knew that that's where you go So I knew all that. And I kind of knew as a kid, I think I'm going to be here someday. And I went surgical, man. That's my style. I went fucking surgical. I got back from Amsterdam. Quitting the band was the hardest thing for sure. Everybody was pissed at me. Record companies were relying on me. Booking agents were relying on me. We were a successful band making money. And I was just like, I'm done. No explanation. Fuck you. I'm out of here.
Well, you're taking care of yourself. You have to do that.
I mean, and I did that. And then I never forget the last beer I had. I told my band I was going to quit. I went and saw this rockabilly band in Boston, and I got hammered out of my face. Went to my friend's house, and there was some Bud Light in her fridge. I opened a can of Bud Light. I drank like half of it, and I was like, you know what? Fuck this too. And I put it on top of her TV, and I walked out of our apartment. I never had a drink ever since.
Wow.
And then, I took the bus from Boston to Western Massachusetts at 28 years old with like $14 and a bunch of stinky clothes. And I moved back in with my mom and dad.
Wow.
And I started going to AA right away.
Good for you, man.
And it was not fun.
No, I can imagine not.
It was a nightmare, but I was just done. I just knew there was enough of Dharma in me that I also knew there was another way to live. Like I knew that there was this other thing, that there was a wholesome way of living and mindfulness and all this stuff that I'd learned. It was just time.
Wow. Well, you had part of your story is you also sat in a 90-day like meditation retreat. Is this did you do that during the 10 years or after?
No, this is crazy. So I'm sober like 60 days, which is not long. And I'm like not feeling AA. I'm like, God, there's all this God stuff. And this, AA is kind of like hard to negotiate. I was like, I'm going to go to IMS and sit the 3-month retreat. And I'm going to bang out this alcoholism thing. So I went and sat for 90 days with 60 days sobriety. And I do not recommend that people do that.
Wow. Well, you say in that 90-day experience, like that you confronted the innermost nether regions of your heart and mind. So, take us through that experience, please.
Well, I mean, the good thing about it was, I left that retreat completely confused and totally traumatized, and just looking at the rest of my life being like, I was totally humbled. I was like, I don't have any idea what the hell to do. But when you sit for 90 days, you see it all.
Right.
You see everything, good, bad, and otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
You get a PhD in the inner life. So I had a sense, I saw the worst shame, the worst hatred, the deepest concentration. I basically got a tutorial on the equipment. I got a diagnostic. Here's how the equipment works. Here's what's in here. So I kind of had this weird confidence. I was like, well, at least I know what I'm up against. And I felt some degree of confidence that I had the resources or the willingness or probably the courage to go, all right, I can probably sort this out. And I did.
And imagine that's where it's part of that, like the non-religious faith came through. It's like, wait,
right.
There's something here. You know what I mean? There's something here. And because when I sit and when people begin to meditate, and you really go deep, you just begin to understand that there's a deeper connection, like not just inside, but there's also a connection with us from some sort of whatever divine intelligence or God, whatever you want to call it. And that just, I trust that that's there. I trust that that's guiding me. I trust that it's helping me in some way, even if I'm not necessarily tapping into it all the time. But it just that beautiful inner trust has just been such a gift for me.
No, that's huge. And if you asked me what would be the one thing that has kept me, it was faith right from the beginning. It's like, it was exactly like you described, like whether you want to call it Dharma or God, I don't care what you call it, but there's a sense, there's a something here that's trustworthy.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Exactly.
I don't know, but and so that's been the one thing that I've has kind of always kept me in the hardest of times to be like, all right, I think I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I getting I go to some shitty places in my life or my mind, and I'm like, I had some really lows, living here on my own in New York City. But even the lowest of the lows, I knew, no, this is just a moment in time. I know the light is there. The light's in me. I aspire to the light. Now I sound like a real freak in some ways, but it's
yeah.
But it's true. I mean, it's just there's something. And yet you tap that wisdom to tap that trust, like you have to get quiet. You need to sit. You need
And
to
there was a theory on that. Like once you know, you can't unknow.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go. There it is.
I mean, you lose it at times and you get your doubts and your concerns, but once you get a little bit of taste, you're like, okay, this is actually what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But how do you know that's what you're looking for? So I guess what I mean is, there's a lot of people with that inner hatred that you talked about, that self-loathing. People are afraid of what might bubble up when they sit. I mean, I know that not even sitting in meditation, just sitting quietly through the day. Very few people sit quietly for any second of the day. Any second of potential peace, they fill that. They fill it with TV. They fill it with their phone. They fill it with social media. They fill every waking second of their day. What would you say to people that kind of fear their own inner world, and why do you think we do?
Well, I would normally lie it and say you damn well should fear your inner world. That's actually wisdom right there.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
Well, there's a lot, there's lots of unresolvedness in most of us. And, there's no guarantee that when you take a look, this is a little bit risky. There should be a warning label on the bottle. And so this is where therapy and stuff can come in handy, where it's like, people can become unglued in ways that are unhelpful. So I think we have to have some level of intelligence around, like, not everybody maybe is ready for certain things. And so, many people want to wade slowly into the mindfulness pool. Some people dive right in, but you have to be somewhat prepared for that. So learning practices that build capacity. And this is the problem as a teacher, everybody's different. I used to teach in, eating disorder clinics and jails and prisons and, basically traumatized people. And sometimes you'd fuck people up. So, what you have to do is people have to learn how can they build capacity to be present. Now, that might just be sitting outside and looking at the birds. It doesn't matter what it is. For some people, eyes closed going into the breath is actually not good. So, that's not a phone. What can I pay attention to in the present moment that makes me feel stable? And then once you identify that, maybe it's my shoulders, it's my breathing, it's a global awareness of the body, it's being outside in nature and listening to the sounds. It's lighting an incense and just smelling the incense. And once people go, oh, I actually can be present for my experience, then you can really kind of do a whole range of things. But that has to happen first. You have to be able to be present for your experience in a way that you feel stable or confident, or you're like, okay, this is kind of weird and uncomfortable, but I can do it.
Yeah. Do you have an example of how these practices of or like diving into deep end, like have fucked people up? You have like a story or something?
I mean, it fucked me up, but I was able to handle it. I think I just had enough of morbid curiosity to be able to not really get overwhelmed so much. I wanted to see the dark side.
Right.
I was living in it anyway. I was like, just show me the whole goddamn thing and let's get this over with.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
There's been some writing on it. I don't like to say much about this because I don't want to spook people. Because there's been some writing about like the dangers of this stuff. I think it's just a matter of, you have to have a little bit of faith or a little bit trust in like the person who's delivering it to you, like the teacher or the facilitator. This is why, like, I think, what you guys are doing is so great, kind of secular mindfulness, kind of light, kind of getting into the breath. Like, that's why I love Jon Kabat-Zinn. A lot of people come through mindfulness-based stress reduction, and it's just really basic. It's kind of clinical driven. It's not woo-woo. It's just, okay, like very basic stuff. And then once people get an appetite for that, they usually want to go, into that stuff. So the other thing I want to just say about that's confusing is meditation retreats, meditation experiences don't cause trauma. They reveal trauma.
Yep. Great point.
Stuff that's stored in the body.
So, it's not like the meditation is creating some experience out of nowhere. It's just opening you into a door that you maybe weren't prepared to walk into.
Yeah. I like when I did my third Vipassana in 2022, I did one in 2016, 17. These are 10-day Vipassana sits, noble silence, 10 hours of meditation a day.
Goenka?
Goenka, yeah.
Good for you. That's
Yeah.
hardcore, man.
Oh, fuck, man. I was in Shelburne Falls. I've done it 3 times. In your neighborhood, kind of. You're not, I don't know how
totally.
much, but yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful center. But like the guidance is fantastic, through Goenka as he moves through this. And it talks about like, the first 3 days, you're just following your breath and you can move all you want or move your body all you want. And you're just like slowing the mind, slowing the body down, kind of getting more present, into the experience of where you are. And then, day 4 through day 10, that's when you begin to experience or practice exercise of Vipassana practice. All you're doing is body scanning. And every night he has a lecture and a discourse, they call him. And he would always come back and talk about like sankhara, right? And how it's like we are just slowly peeling back or the layers of and eradicating the layers and the root causes of our suffering over and over and over again. And you would just think it's like a linear, you can kind of graph to more bliss. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, I'm going to on day 7, I'm going to feel better. On day 8, I'm going to feel better, but like, I remember getting to day 7 and I got actually hit Banganana, like when you get into that state of like absolute fucking bliss and you're like, it was phenomenal. The next day, all of a sudden this fucking rage came through. And I'm just like sitting there and I just want to like just scream and yell and break shit in this Dharma hall of 150 meditators all sitting there quietly. I was just so, it's wild. It was wild. And it just like, and those just come to some of the difficult things, the dark side that I was working with. But it's just like, I'd rather see it in that safer environment, and then come back and meditate on that again and just see, maybe overcome some of those root causes of what was like creating that rage, that deep suffering. But it's just like, that's just part of the process of getting deeper into knowing yourself. And like the ultimate goal of these practices is just liberation from your thoughts and your feelings and just like being as present as you possibly can. So next, how about, let's go with, what are some like, one of the most common excuses is I just don't have time to meditate. Like, how do you respond to that?
I mean, that's bullshit, right?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the first thing. I mean, all you have is time.
Right.
Really, and it's just so, but also it's a matter of being like realistic about it. Like people, like I wouldn't say, well, you need to, like the old joke is, the Zen master says you should meditate for half an hour a day. And you say, I don't have enough of time. He says, well, then you should meditate for an hour. That kind of thing. So it's like, but part of it is like, is being, I think Thich Nhat Hanh said it. He said, if you're not disciplined, you need to be clever. And so not everybody's disciplined, but maybe that's clever. Is there a way that you can sit for 10 minutes in the morning and start off with small numbers? Like just, I'll say, well, do 10 minutes a day. People are like, well, I could do that. I'm like, well, then do it. And finding clever ways of, 10 minutes is way better than 0 minutes. But my general kind of recommendation for most people is like, if you sit 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, that's a pretty healthy meditation practice. And if you can't do that, I call bullshit. You find me somebody in America who doesn't squander 30 minutes a day on their phone.
Oh, yeah, 100%. If do a time audit. Yeah, do a time audit and see how much
it's
time you're wasting.
It's just a matter of prioritizing, and we're not good at that.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just like the gym. Like,
I mean, that's why Zoom was good because of the pandemic. A lot of people go on a little morning Zoom group or having some external sense of accountability.
Mm. Yeah, exactly.
I have to have it. You know what I mean? I have to be accountable. If I'm accountable to myself, I'm fucked.
Yeah, right.
Because I'll let myself off the hook.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be honest. That's one of the reasons I do this show is like, how can I do this show if I'm not practicing? This show holds me accountable, right? I don't want to be a fraud.
Yeah.
And I know Will's holding me accountable too.
Yeah, and I'm judging you when you don't, John. I'm just kidding.
That's good.
I'm just
Rightly
kidding.
Rightly so.
Right,
you guys can have the comparison strategy. Which one of us is more committed to the practice?
Yeah, because that's like creates
who's
more
a better
joy.
meditator.
You like my friend John, he's just kicking tires, but I'm like the real thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's done the Vipassana. I'm nowhere near as good as him.
Yeah,
that's right.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's kind of move to the payoff, right? We kind of do our show in 3 acts, if you will. The hook, the value add, the build. Now let's talk about the payoff for our listeners. What's one thing anyone listening could do right now to start developing that mindfulness, even if they're brand new?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways. I mean, part of it is being careful that you don't just read and listen to podcasts about mindfulness.
Except this one, gotta listen.
Yeah, exactly.
And Dave's,
Exactly.
If you, and this is a beautiful thing, if your conditions in life are such that all of a sudden you're starting to think like mindfulness is maybe a good idea, then you're really, really well on your way. If this stuff makes sense to you and you're like, oh yeah, then 5 minutes a day, get on Headspace or 10% Happier, or if there's anything that you can get on that has just some basic instructions, Dharma Seed, there's a bunch of stuff out there, and just find one guided meditation that you like and do it over and over again. Do it, every single day. Just starting small is way better. 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. Find a 15-minute guided meditation you like. Do it 5 days a week, because if this stuff is making sense to you and it feels like it's maybe a good idea, that probably means you're ignoring some pretty crucial suffering or stress. There's something going on in your life. You feel like you're walking around with a rock in your shoe. And you're like, I don't know about this. Something's off. And maybe, and probably if I could relate to my mind more skillfully, more kindly, that I would probably get some relief from that. So, and that's the good thing. When people get a little, and usually you get it pretty quick. That's the good thing about mindfulness. You get a little bit of relief from your mental, affliction. You're going to want some more.
Yeah. It's just like going to the gym, right? You get a good workout in, you get all those endorphins released. You're like, you know what? Now I want some more. Speaking about the gym, that kind of wraps right into the next question. We've recently had 2 guests that have talked about some level of moving meditation, whether, it's getting into ultra marathons or ultramans, which is the extreme of the triathlon, the extreme of the Ironman, or rucking. We had somebody come on and talk about rucking, carrying heavy loads and just going walking. You're a big fan, a big advocate of moving meditation. In your opinion, how does movement help anchor people into that present moment?
Well, you have to be careful about this, because then people will use everything you just said, as an excuse to not do seated practice. They're like, well, I meditate at the gym, or I meditate when I jog. Or
I hear that.
And you're not. That's not what you're doing.
Right.
So stop saying that. When you go on a Vipassana retreat, or if you're at a monastery, they alternate sitting and walking. I think as far as mindfulness goes, I mean, walking is really great. Walking slower than you're used to. Walking without headphones on, just taking a walk, an aimlessly walk with no intention of getting anywhere or going anywhere. It also can be like, like if you go to the mall, park as far away as possible and do a walking meditation on your way to the grocery store. Like, we walk a lot. And so just bringing more mindfulness to just the experience of walking is really, really quite good, I think. And so it gives that body a break from the sitting practice. And there's lots of different ways, but if if you're like using that excuse, like, well, I'm mindful when I go to the gym. Nah, I'm not buying that. Maybe you are. I'm not saying you're not mindful at the gym, but it's not the same thing. Like, if you really want to get the benefit, you have to take 2 or 3 hours a week where you just sit still and don't do anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, the way that I kind of get, I live in the high intensity society here in New York. And one of the language that I use to really bring people into this opportunity to meditate is like, hey, if you want to get better at doing things, whatever it is, like you want to be better in your relationships, better at work, like better with yourself, like, then how about the opposite would be getting good at doing nothing, just sitting and being, and it's just like, because you can't, we live in this oppositional experience of everything. No up without a down, inhale and exhale, right? Light and dark, sun and moon. So what about like doing and non-doing? Like, I think that's a really, and why is non-doing so essential, or just like sitting and just and getting still versus like, again, like we talked about, because I completely agree with you, and I hear that from friends who are like, oh, I go to the gym or I do this. I'm like, no, you're listening to your fucking music, like you're like probably, you know, dropping into your social media between reps or something like that, you know. And it's just like, so
That's
take
right.
us through that, like
Let
what
me
is it
just tell
about
you,
that?
I
Yeah,
just want to
please.
put something out there real quick.
Yeah.
I do that, and I've you know, I go to the gym,
I mean, I
and
do it too.
yeah, but I
But
want
I
to say
also
there's no exactly, but
Me
also,
too.
and there's no judgment for our
no.
listeners. If you're
Yeah,
going to the
yeah.
gym,
I'm sorry.
fucking good on you,
Oh,
get into the gym.
completely right.
But it, you know, for those who say, hey, you know, I can't get to the gym because I have to do some work. I know people who go to the gym, including myself, who do work in between sets.
Right.
Sure.
That's what I'm doing.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just want to put out there, hey, there's no judgment.
One thing I'll say that I actually encourage a lot of people to do that I did for years is what I call a do nothing practice, which is you were hinting to that, where it's like, go sit on a park bench for 20 minutes and don't do anything. Just sit there. You know, don't even close your eyes. Look around if you want to. You know, I think the do nothing practice is really, really good, because sometimes people get addicted to the formal sitting, like they're doing the drill. But you're waiting for your oil to get changed and you're sitting in the little room and you're like having a hard time. Like, when are they going to be done? You're rushing, you're hurrying. Like, just, we have a lot of opportunities to do nothing. And it's like, and that's a good thing to do, because there could be those little times where you get these little mindfulness interventions throughout the day. And I'll do it sometimes too. Like, I'm in my office right now, but like, I can tell when I'm starting to get cagey. I will take a walk on my land, or I'm like, I'm just going to go sit on the back porch for 30 minutes. And I'm just going to sit there. I'm not going to even meditate. I'm not even going to do anything. I'm just going to sit there. And it's interesting. There'll be moments where I'm like, I really want to get up, or I'm like, it gets hard. What is it? Blaise Pascal, the French philosopher, said it best. He said, all human misery stems from the fact that we can't sit quietly in a room by ourselves.
Yeah. I heard that phrase when we first did. And actually, it's funny. I was at the gym yesterday.
Getting social media between the sets.
I'm not answering that question, John. I'm not going to answer that question. I was just listening to music most of the time. But they said, like, yesterday was actually the first day of shutdown during the pandemic. And when that pandemic hit, I heard
That's
that
right.
Pascal quote hit over and over and over again, because people had that opportunity to sit in a room quietly alone, and they were going bonkers. Like, a lot of
To me,
people
that's like the most advanced skill of a human being, is being able to sit quietly in a room by yourself.
I completely agree. And it's like, well, I guess it's like, it's a culture shock and a shock to the system when it's like just forced upon you, right? Instead of going out and seeking it and doing it. But it gets I think the pandemic probably accelerated this mindfulness process and progress, and being part of a world a little bit more because of this. It's like, wait, like, I don't need to be completely adhere to the wildness of my mind. I can control the wildness of my mind and get into this moment more and more and more. Dave, what about daily practice? Oh, sorry. Here's what I want to ask. Let's talk about benefits. Like, okay, so we sit in meditation, right? We're getting these deeper insights. And then how does that, like, what has been, and through your students, if you will, as well, the translation from a traditional kind of seated meditation practice going within, how does that translate off the cushion and into the world?
Interestingly enough, it's kind of different for everybody.
Agreed. Yeah.
A little bit, I think. And so I think there's a sense where people just feel more, they kind of feel like they've moved into their life a little bit more.
Yeah.
There's a kind of, with all the ADD and all the way that what happens is we have our full direct experience and we kind of split off a lot of times. Like we're waiting to get our oil change and we're just thinking about what we're going to do when we get home. And we're just, we're here, but we're not here. I think one of the universal things people find is that there's less splitting off. They feel more integrated. They feel more full. They feel more, they're like, oh, it's actually it's better to just be here. They start to recognize that the splitting off is very unsatisfying.
Agreed.
And then they just kind of stop doing it, or they do it way less.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they wake up quicker in the middle of the split off. They're like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. But
I think that happens for everybody to some degree. And then what you do with that, you might apply it in different ways, but it's more, Yeah, just that kind of feeling more connected and
Yeah,
not needing it to
100%.
be pleasant for me to connect.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like what did Goenka always say? He's like, no aversion to suffering, right? But no craving, bliss or pleasure. It's like just stay equanimity, come to back to the middle, back to the middle. I have this student that I'm working with for quite a while, and he's going through a lot of like radical change this year. And I was like, well, all right, we got to get you to sit in a stillness meditation. So gave him meditation. There's a quote at the top about accept and surrender, through some work by Eckhart Tolle, which I really appreciate his mind around this. And just in these like 2.5 months that he's been meditating, he got to this huge epiphany of like, and it's just like it all exists and that exists too. And it just like, I can, and I was like, just by getting quiet again, that wisdom comes through and came online. And,
Well, that's the good news too in our hurry up, no patient society. And this has been well researched. You do a regular practice of mindfulness 3 or 4 days a week, 20 minutes a pop. You're actually gonna start to recognize changes at like day 100. It doesn't take that long.
Yeah, exactly. This guy's at like day what? Yeah, I guess it's like day 70 or something like that, and
Yeah, and he's like,
not
wow,
even
this is
earlier.
actually
I know.
panning out.
Yeah, I know. It's like, what the fuck? It's changing his relationship. It's changing his leadership style. It's changing his relationship to himself. Like it's just really profound what it can do. But then you just like, when I have those experiences, I just get more excited because I'm like, oh, I'm actually having a greater, a richer experience of life, because like I'm more I'm more of the predominant creative force of it, instead of it just constantly forcing whatever emotional thing is trying to bring up inside of me, and just take me here, take me there. It's
Yeah, the word I would use that's a really kind of simple word that everybody would understand is we just become more available.
Thank you. Yeah.
Nobody's available. Have you noticed that too? Like people want to get on a call. Hey, what's your availability? It's like nobody's available for anybody ever. And there's a practice that we just get that sense of being more available. I'm more available for my kid when he comes up to me. I'm more available to take some time to talk to you guys. And I think that's what we want to become. We want to just become more available instead of like squandering our time and just, wauling out our time and energy to projects and things that we don't even care about.
Right. Yeah. The more we say yes to everything.
Let's go on a chat room and fight about politics. That's a good use of my time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really takes you places. It really goes somewhere.
Yeah, that's good for you.
Yeah, really good for you. Good for everyone around you too. Yeah. Like,
well, I want to start to wrap it up here, but I want to tie this back to the emotional intelligence that we started with. So we've clearly talked about meditation being, specifically sitting meditation, being something that can help to cultivate that mindfulness and emotional intelligence. In your opinion, Dave, what are some other daily practices in addition to, not in place of, but in addition to sitting meditation that can increase your emotional intelligence?
Well, one of the things that people don't always want to do this, but like, first of all, like journaling is really, really good. But one of the things to do journaling wise is at the end of the day, if you look back at your day and you try to recognize what was the biggest charged emotional event of the day. What was that? What happened? Write about that. Well, what was the trigger? What was the experience? What was the response? What was the biggest emotional charge you got from the day? What emotion was it? Do you even know? Was it a combination of two? And then look at it, go, what triggered it? What happened what was going on in your mind, body while it was happening, and how did you respond? And do you feel like you responded in a constructive, healthy way, or do you feel like you could have done better? And you just do that every day for a month or two, and you start to really understand. You're like, oh, anger is a thing for me. Oh, gee, fear is a thing for me. And then when by doing that, you start to get a sense of noticing when the emotional onset occurs. You're like, oh, here it comes. I feel it coming online. That's a really great, because you're going to get a lot of great data from doing an exercise like that. The other thing too, I think is really important, is that we would call it in my space kind of a Dharma buddy, which is like having a friend who also is somewhat invested in this work, that you just kind of check in with every day, or you talk to, or at least you text. Like a lot of people have been in my programs. They have, I have one program that they had like a daily text check-in, and they're still doing it like 6 years later, like 8 people. They go, this is how long I sat for. This is what I did. Having some kind of, it can just be a text, but having some external person reference point where we are saying to each other, we both value this, and let's connect around this. And it's because it's not a good thing to do in isolation. So having a kind of study buddy or Dharma buddy, and just being able to keep track of emotional experiences. And, this is like a, 5-minute a day thing.
Yeah. Great advice.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, for those who want to know more about what it is you're doing, your nonprofit, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah.
Well, I have 2 things kind of. First of all, personally, I have a website called Dave Smith Dharma, which is actually a simple, easy to use website. It's got everything I do is on there. I have like 9 retreats this year that I'm doing. I have a podcast. I have a bunch of, you can just go on the website and look at it. We also have another organization called the Secular Dharma Foundation, which actually really was designed to bring together these worlds of mindfulness and emotional intelligence. We have some programs for that. We might be doing a lot in Colorado because we've applied for some grants. I also just got a contract with the state of Alaska. I'm going up there next month to do a presentation. Because I know that the whole opioid crisis thing, the Sackler family, those fucking criminals, they finally just had to do a payout. It was like $8 billion. So now there's money being released to states for prevention, for treatment, for all these things. And so that's a big part of the work that I do. So a lot of the Secular Dharma Foundation, which also has a podcast, we explore conversations at the crossroads of kind of science and Buddhism and meditation, and kind of coming at it from a different way. Like, well, how does therapy help mindfulness, and how does mindfulness help therapy? This kind of everything's coming together now at once. And how do we, get the best bang for the buck and not get bogged down in things that don't really mean much to us.
Right. Well, awesome, Dave. Thanks for sharing that, and thank you for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
Will, you got anything else? Any other questions that we missed?
No, I really enjoy, Dave, how clear you are in breaking down what all this is. I mean, it can get very people get very esoteric and all,
They do,
kind of weird and stuff. And it's just and I feel like obviously we know this. That's why we speak so plainly about it. It just pushes people away. Whereas there's so many incredible benefits to cultivating, right, a meditation practice.
You like that word now? I like it.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's no, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's exactly, it's a cultivation within, so you can be better outside in every way. And we have our meditation course coming up April 27th. You guys can please join that. And we've actually had 3 groups of people go through that course, and it's funny what opens up. We created this group learning environment as well. So it's not just we actually have people talk about each week as a group. It's what's your triumphs, what's your insights, what's your struggles, and it just really creates more of an inspiring environment for people to be oh wait, I'm having that same struggle. And I remember this one guy, he's he realized in his doing this meditation, never having done it before, it's I'm a control freak. Another guy's wow, I have so many expectations that come up. Oh my God, I have no patience. Oh, wow, I'm so angry all the time. And it's just but that's what it takes. If you want to change in any way, you have to go within. You have to take time, put pause on life, stop what you're doing, right? Get still, and then see what's in there. And it's Dave has mentioned, it's not always pretty, and it can get pretty fucking dark. But but that's how else do you, what's on the other side of that darkness is more light. But you have to go through that darkness, in order to find and discover that light. And if you're not willing to go to those darker places, then, you're only at maybe a half, a third, or maybe, fucking 10% of your potential.
That's right.
For sure.
Yeah, man.
And do you want to lead us in, Dave, into some short meditation or breathing practice or something like that?
Yeah, let's do some kindness practice, because we've been talking about it a lot today.
I love it. Yeah, thank you.
So you can just find an upright way to sit, and just allowing the breath to come and go. And then allowing your awareness to rest at the area at and around your heart center, from the top of the shoulders, across through, and just getting a sense of the rise and fall of the in and out breath at the chest. And slowly just see if you can begin to recognize your own deep wish or your own desire to be free. Doesn't matter how large or small the amount, but just this wishing, this desire, just to be free, just for right now at least. And then you can just rest your attention in this space and just offer these phrases to yourself. May I be at ease. May I be peaceful. May I be content in this moment, just as it is. And just connecting with that intention for one more minute.
Nice touch, Dave.
Well
Oh
done.
my God, that is amazing.
I love it, Dave. Thank you so
Good
much,
for you.
brother. Yeah, man.
Totally
That
is.
felt great. And probably, no, not probably. It's just what I needed right then.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, where are we? What happened? What did we just do? Like, who the fuck are we talking to?
What did he say? Something about freedom? Where'd that
Yeah,
go?
what did you say? Freedom? What are we doing?
I want some more of that.
Dave, this has been awesome, man. I love what you're doing. Definitely
Yeah.
want to stay in touch, man. And
For sure.
yeah, we'll
Killing
make
it.
sure we send you this once it's out. It's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. In both podcast
24th, I
form,
think, right? Is that
yeah,
right?
something like that.
24th. I have it on the top there. Yeah.
But then, for our listeners, check out Dave, check out both what he's doing and what he's doing with the foundation. And please help to spread the word about what it is we're doing with our show. Share it with your family, your friends. Check out the upcoming live virtual meditation course that we've got, mentalkingmindfulness.com. And then, we'd love to get sponsored again, because, hey, it costs money to make this show, and we need some help. We're poor. Money, please.
That's like, we're still in the red. Oh, my God. But we love it. We love being in the red. No, we don't. But anyway.
All right. Well, that's all we've got. Dave, thanks again. Will, always a pleasure, brother. Until next time, take care, everyone. Peace.
Thanks, everybody. Keep rocking.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.